Just yesterday, we got Cyberpunk 2077's Night City Wire 3, and in this we got a ton of information, a ton of looks at the game, and really at Night City itself, and of course some of those gangs inhabiting it. For me, it was actually probably my favorite Night City Wire thus far, but there was also just a ton of things that would flash on screen for a moment and then disappear rather quickly. So in this video, what I want to do is bring you probably a ton of information you may have missed or just overlooked around Night City Wire 3, so I could hopefully share with you some Easter eggs, some details that you may have just not known about or missed from The Wire, and even further, some things you almost certainly missed because they weren't actually in Night City Wire itself, but shared in the afterstream, shared on a different website after the fact, or even just tweeted out after the fact. So I want this video to serve as somewhat of a recap, but really as a deeper dive into some of that new information, because there was a lot of it, and even just during some of the trailers. If you guys enjoy the content, you can leave a like, it really helps with the YouTube algorithm, or subscribe. There should be a lot more Cyberpunk content on the way, as we are now under 2 months out from its release. So right off the bat, something that deserves further clarification and additional details were shared about are the technical requirements for Cyberpunk 2077 that were released at the end of Night City Wire. So a lot of people looked at these and were like, wow, I should have no problem running this game, and it is incredibly optimized. And although that may be true, one right off the bat clarification, if you actually go on to the Cyberpunk 2077 website itself, where the spec page is now created, it does clarify that the minimum requirements are for low at 1080 and the recommended is for high at 1080. But an important disclaimer around that, no FPS is listed, and when no FPS is listed, when a game is also built for consoles, you have to assume it's low at 30 FPS at 1080 and high at 30 FPS at 1080 also. Technically that's yet to be confirmed, but I'm going to go out on a whim and say these are not the requirements for 60 FPS, and of course not for things like Ultra, for RTX on, or for higher resolutions. Although that is coming, as we got further clarification on Twitter that additional details on the technical requirements for 4K and RTX settings will come in the future. And even further, console gameplay of Cyberpunk 2077 should come in the future. This is something that I think is very important to keep in mind for a lot of people, in that you are seeing the best version of this game, what high-end PCs will run, and likely always with ray tracing on, at least for the past couple of years, despite the fact that I'm sure the vast majority of us will not be able to run this game at max settings with RTX on and also get at least 60 FPS. So what you're seeing here is obviously representative, but some of those details may not be as well represented as you're playing, and I just wanted to put that out there to keep in the back of your mind. In just this most recent gameplay, you saw insane details as far as some of the lighting goes and screenshots, hand and arm details, being able to see the individual veins in people's hands. Might not be that high fidelity as you're playing it on your Xbox One or even on the Series X. Although again, fortunately, we should have gameplay of what it looks like on consoles in the future, so you will know before release what it will look like. But speaking of the visuals of this, with the most recent Night City Wire, we were able to see a variety of scene overhauls. So some of the technical upgrades that were brought to this game over the past couple of years, even since we got some of those initial gameplays. A lot of this around the 2018 gameplay, but even some with the 2019 gameplay in similar characters or locations, and you can see just how insanely good Cyberpunk 2077 looks. Similar to the additional clarification around technical requirements, there was a lot of info released outside of the Night City Wire stream itself. nightcity.love is a real website. It was shown during the stream, and you could actually go there and find quite a bit of information. Some details about the election that is going on, we'll touch more on that in a moment. Also the threat level of certain districts in Night City, as well as just overall lore and backstory for the world itself. Also, this website has a ton of pop-up ads, which are just hilarious and really interesting. It shows that this does not go away in 2077. And then finally, a variety of screenshots showing off the world, and many cool aspects of it were shared on this website. I wouldn't say there are any huge implications from these, but they just look really, really good. It really gets you excited to explore this. And some new renders shared of the gangs of Night City. We of course got a great look at those in the new trailer, but I think in some ways these renders actually are just a bit of a clearer look. You could really see how different it goes from one gang to another, but we'll talk more about that in this video. The last thing, not necessarily in the stream of Night City Wire, was actually an interview with one of the quest designers. A few interesting details that were shared through this. He described how Cyberpunk 2077 will feature a minigame similar to Gwent, or at least on the scale of Gwent, but no further details or clarification was given. He also said the main story of Cyberpunk 2077 is going to be somewhat shorter than that of The Witcher 3, this large in part due to some complaints around the length of The Witcher 3's story. And to be clear, this is just the main story, not accounting for things like side quests or side missions. You can beat Cyberpunk 2077 without killing anyone, although at times it can be pretty difficult to do so. And also, one that has kind of been confusing or concerning for some people, at this point, all the romanceable characters have been shown in trailers at some point. So seemingly, if they're a main romance option in Cyberpunk 2077, you've seen them in either one of the gameplays or one of the trailers. So now people have been digging through to figure out, well, which of the characters are fitting that category. But it definitely has also left a few people wondering, wait, that's it? There's not more options than that? But then switching over to the absolute beauty that is Night City itself. I feel like this trailer did a really good job showing some of the diversity of the landscape, even just simple things like the city center at night versus day and seeing how different that actually is. You can see a few shots looking down at the city, whether it be from an apartment or some other building. And something interesting we've heard about this from other interviews is that is really the world simulated. What you see happening out there in some of these panning shots is really happening. You can go down there and see it for yourself. We have a really nice look at the city overall from one of these new trailers. And although it looks really cool, it's one of the best looks we've had thus far, it also does show something interesting in that the orbital station is missing. On some past maps, you could see an orbital station that was connected to the city center, but it clearly is not represented here. It's not clear why that is. Maybe it just was cut or isn't represented on this map, or maybe turned into an expansion of some kind. We get some first in-game screenshots of acid rain, a confirmed part of Cyberpunk 2077 that looks awesome. During one scene in the trailer, you could actually see this guy praising the aliens for taking his wife and kids, and really more so than anything else, I wouldn't say there was a ton to extract from some of the little brief clips we saw in the trailer, but it's just good to take in. Some of these flash on screen for literally a second or so, but do showcase just how pretty or diverse this city is. Many different landscapes, and also just advertisements everywhere. We've seen this mentioned many times by Cyberpunk devs, but to me, with these most recent trailers, it has showcased that more so than ever before. One, how many advertisements are all over the place, and two, the diversity in them, and all the different or interesting ways of advertising certain products. One of the coolest shots in my eyes being the Arasaka compound that looks like it's more so on the city outskirts, but looks pretty cool. We got a few shots of the Badlands, something that I think we desperately need more representation of on some of these maps. We could see the swamp. We could actually see one section that looks like it's the edge of the world, but there's actually a little ramp there, which is exactly what we as players want to see. Another little fun one, you could actually see this guy T-posing as we enter into the Afterlife bar during one shot during Night City Wire. Really, there's not enough time to even show all of the freeze frames I took from the most recent trailer because there are so many cool and interesting shots, but I do encourage you guys to watch it back even on half speed just to look at it all. But one of the other things I feel like we got a pretty good glimpse at is some of the vehicle diversity also represented in Night City. And we did hear a few new details around vehicles from that recent developer interview. You can of course summon your vehicle in this game, but even further, you can actually choose which of your vehicles you want to summon. So it's not like you're restricted to one at a time. You could have a whole variety and pick and choose what you want and when. Vehicle brands in this game will have a certain amount of consistency, so you may find yourself starting to liken one specific brand and try and collect the vehicles or just prefer the vehicles of that brand, whether it be due to the design of them or even just how some of the vehicles drive. Collecting all of the vehicles is a possible thing you can do in Night City, but apparently it is very, very expensive. Some vehicles are quest rewards, some just cost a lot of money. We saw a brief shot of some new motorcycle gameplay during Night City Wire 3, and it probably looked like the most fun vehicle gameplay we've seen thus far. There's also that shot of aircraft shooting down, which is equally cool, but something interesting about the motorcycles represented in this most recent trailer, they very closely match the design of the real-world motorcycle company owned by Keanu Reeves. And you have to imagine those similarities aren't just a coincidence. Early on in the trailer, we see a lot of these people talking in these little TV shows. Most of these are just talk show hosts, but some further context on them, they're described as being oftentimes shown in elevators or just in restaurants. You could actually kind of stand there and watch the show for a little bit. Elevators in this game aren't actually load screens. It's just moving you from point A to point B, so they won't be artificially long if you're loading in slowly. As we see this Ziggy Q talk show host, we actually could see a fake crowd behind him, either puppets or animatronics, but I thought that was pretty cool or interesting. We could see these guys with the interesting eyes. This is actually the first look at the US Cracks, which is a pop band specifically known for their eccentric eye implants. We finally get a look at Takamura. Technically, we've seen this character before, but never in game. We actually have a variety of toys for this character. We know his name is Takamura. We don't know much outside of that, but based on the fact that he is one of the few characters to have toys and collectibles around him, certainly seems like this guy will be pretty important. So whoever he is, whatever his role is, it's going to be notable. And something else that ties into some of those talk show hosts that you did seen, there's currently an election going on as we start off in Cyberpunk 2077. We heard about this from some of the media hands-on and previews. This character you see throughout is Weldon Holt. He is running for mayor of Night City. We see a few posters of him in the background. Also, we could see some factions shooting him, so we know that's not their pick. We get another look at Johnny Silverhand in this trailer, and it's pretty clear he got a pretty substantial upgrade for Night City Wire 3. In particular, compared to the 2019 deep dive, this is a huge night and day difference. Although something else you may have missed is there's actually this scene. It looks like this is actually from the perspective of Johnny Silverhand. You of course have the metal arm, but even things like the rings match up a little bit too closely for it to be a coincidence. It also looks like down below is Alt Cunningham being very friendly to Johnny. Not totally sure what's going on there, but we like monetization. And this may end up being a flashback scene. Of course, based on the couple of seconds we have thus far, it's hard to infer too much, but it is pretty interesting how that was just kind of slid in there. And also throughout all of this, you could actually see a lot of chem usage, which I feel like wasn't highlighted as much in some of those past trailers, but it is all throughout this one. But then transitioning over to some of the gangs and things we can extract from that. Something I found interesting here was the mention of scavengers. They just briefly mentioned at the start of this as at points having the highest body count, but nothing else is really said about them. These scavengers are almost more loosely organized or not as clearly defined as some of the other gangs of Night City, but they are considered a gang of Night City. They're considered as the low life of the region, inhabiting almost all of Night City. They'll actually focus on taking out cyberware from other people, whether it be the citizens or even from other gangers. I just want to clarify that it wasn't just the broad term scavengers, but there actually are specific scavengers that are gangs somewhat. But as far as the actual organized gangs, we get a much better look at all of them. And again, for this one, I feel like just going frame by frame, looking at some of the images we have of each is pretty interesting. It really shows you just how much diversity and how many customization options will be around for this game, and specifically with some of these gangs. This did spark some questions as to how exactly this is implemented. Are gangs joinable factions? Can you kind of align with one or the other? It seems like no, that's not really a thing in Cyberpunk. You are a merc, as that was clarified a couple of times. Mercs don't really align with anybody. But then the flip side, let's say you just wanted to go to a gang's headquarters and take them all out. Can you destroy one that way? And it was also clarified that really isn't a thing either. If a gang was to disappear holistically, it'd probably be a large story point, not just something you casually do. But via this, we also could see that some of these gangs have some pretty unique options. There's actually a variety of vehicle customization options that seem to be exclusive to some of these gangs, or at least represented by them. Different paint jobs on the same vehicle, or even just their own vehicles having representation of the gang. We saw some pretty unique armors and weapons. The Tiger Claws look like they're going to have some pretty awesome modded Mantis blades. These things look gnarly, and even the mask this guy is wearing looks pretty terrifying, and I would probably be pretty terrified if this guy jumped out at me like this in game trying to kill me. As far as some of these unique weapons or armors, it was described how some of them are going to be quest rewards. Some of them you could just get by killing gang members, but again, unlike other games, it's not like you're going to align with one gang, get deeper and deeper into it, and then get some top tier content. Seems like there's odd jobs here or there and some main or side quests. Overall though, I would say some of these additional screenshots or even freeze frames do give us a really good look at the identity each of these gangs have and just how distinctive they all are. But a few other interesting weapons or gang related items that did stand out. This pistol is pretty interesting in that as I was watching it in slow motion, it looks like it goes forward then back. You can see as the entire upper slide looks like it kind of shifts forward a bit and then shifts back like a normal action. Not totally sure why that's going on or what influence that will have, but it was interesting. At this point, it looks like we have some kind of double barrel pistol or a two-shot pistol. You can see two projectiles fly out of it. The Maelstrom boss here actually fires these giant exploding rectangles that are pretty cool, but it's really easy to miss watching in regular speed. We can see a wide variety of heavy armors and weapons during this trailer. One of the ones you may have missed is this Militech agent actually wearing one. It's on screen for just a frame and kind of blurry towards the side, but looks pretty awesome. I hope you could wear this on our own character. This has been widely speculated to actually be the death scene of Cyberpunk 2077, similar to Wasted from GTA. I wouldn't be shocked if we see a ton of memes using this one with the inevitable success this game will have. And then lastly, I wanted to highlight some of the interesting people you could see throughout Night City or I spotted throughout some of this gameplay. This guy definitely has a very interesting or notable face, probably something you're not going to forget. We also saw at one point somebody who looked like they almost had a full body LED dancing in the background. It'd be pretty cool if you could actually kit out your own character like that. And just in general, you could really see all throughout this trailer the difference in style as you go from one district to another. We know the different districts are really going to have their own identity. During Night City Wire 3 overall, they were almost described as being little characters in a way, and I feel like this trailer did a good job at representing that, but that point's, again, almost a little too quickly, so hopefully some of these screenshots gave you a better look or idea. Overall though, those were a lot of the interesting things I found or picked out during Night City Wire 3 overall. There was a lot to take in from this one. It's definitely one of those ones worth a second watch at a slower speed. For me, it was definitely, again, my favorite Night City Wire. I love everything that was shown, and it is exciting as we now kick off the final stage of marketing. Just 2 months are left before we could get our hands on this game. We know there's at least 1 or 2 more Night City Wires on the horizon, as well as additional details on things like DLC and expansions coming, and of course that very, very exciting console gameplays that'll be really telling about this game. How good does it look on not top tier hardware or not with ray tracing? Either way though, I thank you all again for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, but until next time, I hope to see you all later.